welcome to Red Ice Creations Radio. My name is Henrik Palmgren. I'm the editor and webmaster of redicecreations.com, and this is our internet talk radio show recorded from the west coast of Sweden. And you can join us here every Thursday and Sunday. And today we have with us our monthly regular guest, Michael Tsarion. You can follow along in our program with Michael every third Thursday. And if you're new to the program or new to Michael's material, there are a few websites that you must dive deeper into. MichaelTsarion.com is the main site to look out for, and from there you'll find links to Taroscopes.com, OriginsandOracles.com, where you can find Michael's excellent DVD series, Origins and Oracles. And also take a look at the new MTSAR forum set up through redicecreations.com. So lots to look at. Again, that's MichaelTsarion.com. And today's theme is Inquisitions Old and New. And we are going to dive deeper into the subjects of Christianity, God, religion, and much, much more. So let's get things going here. Welcome back to the program, Michael. Always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Henrik. It's lovely to be back.
Excellent. You know, to get things going here, I'm going to read a quote from Helen Elber's The Dark Side of Christian History. The Christian Church has left a legacy, a worldview that permeates every aspect of Western society, both secular and religious. It's a legacy that fosters sexism, racism, the intolerance of difference, and the desecration of the natural environment. Christianity has helped to create a society in which people are alienated not only from each other, but also from the divine. Interesting.
Yeah. You know, people have to realize that we're dealing here with a paradigm that is responsible for divorcing man from himself, for creating terrible gender dichotomy, and social, discohesion, and also it's basically perpetrating the idea that the universe, the universal structure, and man's nature is hierarchical as opposed to holarchic. You'll have a lot of people, asking for answers about what we're going to do, to solve all of the different problems that mankind has been facing and is facing now. You have a lot of people with genuine interest. But you see, in order to have a real understanding of how to make positive changes, you have to know what the problem is. You have to know what, the problems are that's facing man right now. And one of them is a philosophical understanding, which even the quantum scientists do understand, is about these two opposing principles. It's like that yin-yang symbol you see, or the what the Maya or the Aztecs called the nagual and the tonal, or that William Blake referred to as prolific and devouring. The two serpents fighting each other. In life there seems to be two contending worldviews or two contending paradigms. The wave and the pulse. But one of the best ways to really understand this dichotomy is to realize it in terms that people like Ken Wilber and other very, very sophisticated philosopher scientists are talking about, which is the difference between the hierarchical structure of life with, of course, if we're talking in terms of Christianity, then this makes a lot of sense, because that's exactly what Christianity is. It's God at the top, this bizarre, to me, very bizarre concept of this, Michelangelo may have painted some nice pictures, showing it, but it really doesn't make much logical sense if you think about it. About this strong, very masculine force, this sort of father figure at the top of this sort of hierarchy, and then everybody and everything, down from that point. And somewhere at the base of this endless pyramid are the devils and the demons and some sort of infernal bottomless pit, which all of that's just going to erupt from the bottomless pit if this God should ever be challenged.
Yeah.
My God, should this incredible hierarchy ever be challenged, ever be refuted, ever be questioned, ever be doubted, then you see we have Lucifer, Beelzebub, you see, and the whole infernal army ready to explode and create chaos in the world. So what does the principle represent at the bottom of the pyramid? Is rebellion. Yeah. The forces of chaos might erupt. So never question that all-powerful something at the top of the pyramid. You don't know what it is, but never question it, because we're dealing with a hierarchy here. And this flies in the face of what is known as the holarchy, which science now has proven is, in fact, the way the universe works. It's the way the human mind works, really, but not the ego. The ego consciousness is also hierarchical. So could it be that man is this God that's at the top of the pyramid, as we've talked in other shows? Could this be the fact that this is man projecting his own ego consciousness, a sort of a projection of an imago of his own consciousness, and then he worships that inflated version of his own self? You know, is this what people are doing because they're so traumatized? You know, in my work, I always center anything that's born out of trauma, and I believe that the religious paradigms of the world are born out of trauma. They're, like I said, a hierarchy. How does a hierarchy come into being? I didn't address it in my work on Atlantis because it was at that point, writing in that book, it would have been too much of a distraction. But my analysis of what hierarchy is and how it came into being is exactly the same, you know, as how evil came into being. It all goes back to the time of the original traumatization of the ego and the loss of the umbilical connection to the matrix, which people have described as the mother, you know, the greater knowledge, the higher intelligence, the implicate order. That got twisted. In most people it's broken completely, and in other people it's sort of just choked, this connection to the, you know, the matrix, the true intelligence, which is so much more than just what ego consciousness is. Now that got broken, twisted, traumatized, occluded through these tremendous traumas that happened in historical time. And for people who don't know and are just listening for the first time, you know, very quickly, I consider those to be, first of all, there was a interstellar in our solar system. There's destruction of this planet Tiamat, which was witnessed from Earth. There was a subsequent visitation of alien beings who then subsequently did some transgenic experiments. And then following that trauma was Earth changes, the famous Earth changes, which again science is, science is also, believe it or not, as we've seen on our websites, we've posted it. Science is now even accepting that there has been some interference with the DNA.
Oh yeah.
But they've certainly already admitted for the last 10 to 15 years that there also has been Earth changes. Well, all of those, that's what I'm talking about. Every one of those, and it's up to people to, they can decide for themselves which of those events was more traumatic than the other. I mean, it's kind of a futile, but taken all together, that caused so much trauma that what we know as consciousness was basically fragmented, utterly, short-circuited.
Yeah.
And it's in fact always a perpetual miracle to me that it existed. And I want to make this other point, and that is that because I understand how deep this fissure, this trauma, this schism, this deremption is, I'm not a person who, when I look around at what I can only describe as the state of decay, and I don't just believe it's a 20th century or 21st century state of decay. We've been in a pretty bad state for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But when I look at all of that, I am not a person who finds that at all difficult to grasp. Didn't R.D. Laing say that insanity is a perfectly natural consequence of an insane environment? It's going insane is actually a person's reaction to an unsane or unhealthy environment.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm a person who looks at it like this: that knowing what man has gone through in a blink of an eye ago, having conceived of the magnitude of this, it is not surprising to me to see the kind of governments that we've got, the kind of psychosis that we have, the kind of paranoia, the kind of mask playing, which I described, a little bit more in the Future of Mankind talk.
Yeah.
All of that stuff that we went into, and of course the self-sadism, which I hope we get time to talk about today again, and the rise of religion. When I look at all of this stuff that people complain about, and they fold their arms and they shake their heads and they roll their eyes and go, my goodness, what is wrong with us? Things are just so terrible. Yes, but that's to be expected if you do what people like Jordan Maxwell have said, which is look to your past. Find out what has been going on in the past.
Yeah.
Not your life. You're born into a place, that has a history. There's roots. Your thinking, your consciousness, your ego is a thing. Find out what it is. And so from the past, we were traumatized. It's so immeasurably so, it's almost, you could write volumes on just that alone. And for people who are interested in that, certainly I can recommend Julian Jaynes's book, The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. But you see, so when I look at even what is happening within religion, when I see the atrocities that are happening criminally in the world, and when I see some of the abuses in religion, or when I look at war, or when I look at crime, and of course, there's people who follow my work know that I also talk about other forms of, psychic violence that mankind is not even really aware of is going on, but we'll have to leave that aside for another show. Because again, we can take a Polaroid of a lot of the horrible forms of physical violence that are taking place, and I do hope that continues to happen, and that people still investigate all of that, and we try to understand why human beings would do all of these sadistic things. But there's also another chapter, about all other forms of another kind of violence that happens in the world. But when you take it all together, instead of being shocked and horrified, if you understood where we're coming from, then it's very easy to understand how these sadistic edifices, which grow in the name of God, and in the name of Jesus, and in the name of love, and the name of light, are then suddenly go so rotten. So when we're talking about Inquisition, we're not just pointing the finger at some, Christian Inquisition. We're pointing the finger at sadism itself. It doesn't matter if it's Christian sadism or Muslim sadism, you see, or, the Tsar of Russia, you see, or Pol Pot, or Pinochet, or, what I mean, whoever. It's sadism in man.
Yeah. The same reflection.
Yeah.
Giving out.
Microcosm, macrocosm. We talked in the Future of Mankind, talk about that. That what man is within, he creates the culture within, that then manifests these demagogues. But then it's convenient, isn't it, for his ego to say, they're out there, poor little me can't do anything. Instead of realizing mankind creates the situation within their own psyche that then manifests later on as the growth physically of these individuals who are personifications of man's unrest.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it's going to take for people to grasp this fact. Not that it hasn't been said many times. But, when we look into, when we're not picking on Christianity when we look at, but it just so happens that Christianity has operated in very much like the same way any cult operates. And certainly in a hierarchical way. What does that hierarchy do to people's souls? What's the consequence of living in a hierarchical way in which you're meant to just be a nothing? And lose your own sort of individuality. Is that healthy? Has that been leading to anything good?
So, if we compare it to a cult, people can recognize maybe this in, we can go to Marshall Applewhite's or whatever, Heaven's Gate, and we can see it there. For people who are in the cult, that must be the most difficult, to be able to see themselves from that perspective, to see themselves that they are in a cult, what is necessary there? Deprogramming or going back to history, you think, to actually reference back this to see what the truth is of the matter, or just the behavior of the cult itself,
Well, cults, what isn't a cult? It's almost like, what isn't a cult? Yeah. Where can you be free from some cult? Isn't fashion a cult? So it's not just the obvious cults that look kind of weird, the Jim Jones type weird cults, But what isn't fashion a cult? When you turn on the TV, you see these different fashions, and you see these. Look, we have conservative cult, we have the Labour cult, the Democratic cult.
Yeah.
Tell me what is not a cult? The churches. How many factions have they got within a cult? And you're absolutely right. I think it was George Herbert or somebody, Frank